The 12 Dancing Princesses by the Brothers Grimm. The king was very puzzled. He had 12 daughters, each one as beautiful as the moon and the stars, and he loved them above all the riches in his kingdom. But every morning the princesses would appear yawning and bleary-eyed, and with their shoes worn quite through. Every evening the king would kiss them good night and lock the door behind him. So how did they get out? And where did they go? The princesses certainly were not letting on. Buying new shoes every day was costing him a fortune, so the king determined to solve the mystery. The court messenger was sent to all 4 corners of the kingdom to issue the king's proclamation that he would give the hand of one of his daughters in marriage to any man who could discover the secret. But should he fail after 3 nights, he would be banished forever. Needless to say, there were plenty of young men willing to risk banishment to win such a prize. But they soon found the princesses were too clever by half. Before they retired for the night, the princesses sang and played their musical instruments, and fed them sweetness and rich honeyed mead. Before they realized it, morning had come, and there were the sleepy princesses and 12 pairs of worn-out shoes. The king was beside himself. Only the court shoemaker went about with a smile on his face. Now into the kingdom at this time there wandered a penniless soldier. He read the proclamation, and had just decided to try his luck when an old woman came slowly down the dusty road. The young man offered her some of his bread and cheese, and as they sat peaceably together, the old woman asked where he was bound. When he explained, she said, "Well, I may be able to help you. You must not drink the mead those cunning princesses offer you, for it is drugged. Pretend to be asleep, and you shall see what you shall see. This may help you." And the old woman handed him a silvery cloak. "Whenever you wear this cloak, you will be invisible. Use it well." And the old woman disappeared. "Well, perhaps I will succeed now I have magic on my side," murmured the young man as he set off for the palace. By now the king was tearing his hair out. The court shoemaker had taken on extra cobblers to help keep up with the demand for new shoes every day. The princesses were falling asleep into their bowls of porridge at breakfast every morning. The young man bowed deeply to the king and smiled at all the princesses. He ate a hearty supper, but when the eldest princess gave him a goblet of mead, he only pretended to drink it. Then he yawned loudly and let his head droop as if he had fallen asleep. The butler and the first footman dumped the young man onto the bed, placed across the door of the princess's bedchamber. He cautiously opened one eye and gazed around the room. The princesses were putting on gorgeous velvet and brocade dresses, and rings and necklaces. They giggled and whispered as they brushed their hair, powdered their faces, and then pulled on their brand new jeweled slippers that the shoemaker had only delivered a few hours earlier. The eldest princess clapped her hands 3 times. A trap door opened in the floor, and they all swiftly descended down a steep curving staircase. Just as soon as the last princess had disappeared, the young man flung the magic cloak around his shoulders and rushed after them. He found himself in a wondrous garden, where the trees were covered in rich jewels, sparkling in candlelight. Musicians played whirling tunes, and he saw all the princesses dancing with the most handsome princesses. The young man was spellbound, but he managed to keep his wits about him. He reached up and broke off a branch from one of the jeweled trees and hid it under his cloak. Then he ran back and lay down on his bed as though he had never stirred. So it happened on the 2nd and 3rd nights. It was with a weary voice that the king asked the young man at breakfast on the 4th day if he had found out where the princesses went at night. The king sat up very quickly when the young man told his tale and produced branches from the trees. The king was delighted, and the young man chose the youngest sister for his bride, and they all lived happily ever after. Except, of course, the court shoemaker, who always made the young man's shoes just a little too tight so they pinched.